Brexit. Trump's first election.
Donald Trump wins the presidency.
Many people were shocked when both events unfolded, believing them to be mere accidents of history.
I'd like to punch him in the face.
But beneath the surface, there's a deep connection between these two seismic events that shook both sides of the Atlantic. And that connection isn't just buried in the past. It still ties into the rise of a Republican who could very well become the next president of the United States.
Because he would ask me a lot about who I thought the VP nominee should be.
Oh boy.
And I'd give him, yeah, exactly. And I'd give him.
The hidden network linking these events didn't just influence elections. It redefined the way politics is played. It all traces back to one family, a family that mastered the art of leveraging data, technology, and quantitative analysis to outmaneuver financial markets and turn data science into billions of dollars, building the most profitable hedge fund in the history of finance. But their algorithms didn't stay confined to the trading floor. They spilled over into politics, shaping the thoughts and decisions of millions across the US, the UK, and the Western world. They engineered an unprecedented weapon, one that likely swayed millions of votes by harvesting social media data without users' consent, deploying massive but surgically targeted campaigns. They created a right-wing news empire, built a social media platform that was instrumental for rioters storming the Capitol, and funded candidates who reached the White House twice, and maybe even 3 times. And all of this while carrying a gun everywhere and remaining so reclusive that barely any public photos or interviews of them exist.
That's me.
If conservative ideas are currently sweeping across the Western world, the Mercers are anything but uninvolved. And they were pioneers of it all.
Long before Trump announced his candidacy, a hedge fund manager named Robert Mercer saw the opportunity for an outsider to win the White House.
If you're collecting data on people and you're profiling them to give them messaging about issues that they care about, language and imagery that they're likely to engage with, that's what we do as a company. Yeah.
Perhaps their most impressive achievement is the building of a data-driven weapon able to influence voters not through policy, but through their own emotions, called Cambridge Analytica. It wasn't just another analytics firm. It was the unseen hand behind some of the most contentious elections of the modern era.
Eyes on screens.
The company boasted of crafting behavioral change strategies, targeting millions of voters with messages tailored to their psychological profiles.
Facebook is considering tweaking its controversial political ad policy.
The method was deceptively simple, but extremely effective. By harvesting personal data from social media platforms, especially Facebook, Cambridge Analytica built psychological profiles of entire electorates.
About 270,000 users took the paid personality test.
Personality traits, anxieties, political leanings, everything was mapped, categorized, and exploited. A voter worried about immigration would receive carefully calibrated ads warning of border chaos. Someone concerned about the economy would see messages focusing on job losses and national decline. A hesitant, undecided voter would be exposed to a mix of both, subtly reinforcing existing fears and nudging them towards a preferred choice. In 2018, whistleblower Christopher Wiley exposed the full scale of the operation.
This is a company that will send out videos of people being murdered to intimidate voters.
Cambridge Analytica had harvested the data of over 87 million Facebook users without their consent. This information was then leveraged to influence vote intentions, using a precision that had never been seen before in politics. And this was just the beginning. None of this would have been possible without one man in the shadows, Robert Mercer. In 2013, on the advice of Steve Bannon, Robert Mercer invested heavily in the Anglo-American Cambridge Analytica and its Canadian sister company, Aggregate IQ. These companies were designed to harness big data, combining psychometric profiling with machine learning to target voters on an unprecedented scale.
Is that the truth?
Mercer didn't just fund Cambridge Analytica, he transformed it into a tool for reshaping elections. His daughter, Rebecca Mercer, sat on the board, ensuring that the company's operations aligned with their ideological goals. To win elections by reaching to voters not through reasoning, but through their emotions. Cambridge Analytica's first major success came during the Brexit referendum in 2016. Working closely with Vote Leave, the official pro-Brexit campaign, Cambridge Analytica and AIQ deployed micro-targeted ads to sway key voter groups. Using Facebook data obtained through a breach, these companies identified undecided and persuadable individuals and tailored messages to them. Vote Leave's success hinged on cutting-edge data tools, but we'll uncover the full extent of these operations and their masterminds later. Fresh off their success in the UK, the Mercers and Cambridge Analytica turned their attention to the 2016 US presidential election.
I am officially running for President of the United States.
When Donald Trump announced his candidacy, few took him seriously. He had no political experience, no traditional campaign infrastructure, and trailed badly in the polls. But Mercer saw an opportunity. Trump's chaotic, outsider image wasn't a weakness, it was a weapon. And with Cambridge Analytica's data-driven approach, his campaign wouldn't need traditional strategies. Using psychographic profiling, Cambridge Analytica micro-targeted American voters with unprecedented precision. The campaign deployed 5.9 million highly personalized ads on Facebook, tailoring messages not to broad demographics, but to individual psychological triggers. Virtually every voter saw what they needed to see, designed to maximize engagement and push them towards a specific decision.
I will tell you at the time. I'll keep you in suspense.
The results were mind-blowing. Key swing states like Pennsylvania, Wisconsin, and Michigan flipped red for the first time in decades. Turnout surged among demographics that had previously stayed home. Hillary Clinton's digital strategy, focused on broad messaging, was completely outmaneuvered by an operation that targeted voters at an almost individual level. Rebecca Mercer also played a pivotal role in assembling Trump's campaign team, bringing on Steve Bannon as campaign manager and Kellyanne Conway as counselor. But with great power came great scrutiny.
Do you want to know what it is?
Despite their victories, Cambridge Analytica and AIQ couldn't escape scrutiny. In 2018, whistleblowers like Christopher Wiley revealed the full extent of their operations. The companies had harvested personal data from millions of Facebook users without consent, violating privacy laws and sparking global outrage. The backlash was immediate. Facebook CEO Mark Zuckerberg was summoned to testify before Congress, and Cambridge Analytica was shut down. The companies were dissolved, but their legacy lives on. Many of its key figures resurfaced under new companies. Offshoots like Data Propria, Emerdata, and Auspex International continued to develop the same data-driven strategies, just under different names. Through it all, Robert Mercer remained a phantom in the background. As Cambridge Analytica dominated headlines, no public statements were issued, no interviews granted. While political operatives scrambled to contain the fallout, Mercer had already shifted his focus elsewhere. His methods, however, left an indelible mark. The tools developed under his influence transformed modern political strategy, redefining the way elections are run and won. Long before his name was tied to data-driven elections, Mercer had already mastered the art of decoding complex systems. But his first battlefield wasn't politics. It was the financial markets. The foundation of his empire was built at Renaissance Technologies, a hedge fund.
This is probably the single most successful hedge fund in the history of the industry in terms of its performance record.
This foundation of Mercer's influence wasn't built in Washington or London, but in a quiet corner of Long Island, New York, at Renaissance Technologies, a hedge fund unlike any other. Jim Simmons, the founder of Renaissance, wasn't the typical Wall Street figure. He was a mathematician, a cryptographer, and a pioneer in artificial intelligence. By the 1980s, Simmons had grown disillusioned with academia and decided to apply his mathematical brilliance to the stock market, a move that would revolutionize finance forever.
This is Wall Street, Dr. Burry, if you offer...
At the time, trading was ruled by instincts, experience, and the occasional lucky guess. But Simmons brought something radical.
Bringing in science into the investing world has improved that world.
Algorithms. Cold, calculating, and infinitely faster than any human brain, these algorithms could detect patterns in the market that no one else could see. To make his vision a reality, Simmons hired an eclectic team of mathematicians, physicists, and computer scientists, many of whom knew little about finance, but were brilliant problem solvers. Renaissance Technologies wasn't just a hedge fund. It was a research lab. And it worked. Renaissance's flagship fund, Medallion, achieved something almost mythical, an average annual return of 66% over decades. This wasn't just insane success, it was domination. While other hedge funds prayed for favorable markets, Renaissance's algorithms thrived in chaos, always a step ahead. It was in this scientific utopia that Robert Mercer arrived in 1993. By then, Mercer was already a brilliant computer scientist, having spent years at IBM working on machine translation, teaching computers to understand and process human language. At IBM, Mercer had redefined his talent for spotting patterns in chaos, a skill that would make him invaluable at Renaissance. At Renaissance, Mercer wasn't just another coder. He quickly became a key figure, helping refine the algorithms that made their flagship fund, Medallion, nearly invincible. In 2009, when Jim Simmons stepped down as CEO, Mercer and his colleague Peter Brown took the helm. Under their leadership, Renaissance continued to flourish, earning billions for its employees and cementing its place as the most successful hedge fund in history. But while Simmons used his wealth to support liberal causes and scientific research, Mercer began channeling his fortune into politics, backing candidates and causes that aligned with his staunchly libertarian beliefs. Among these beliefs, one stood out: his unwavering support for the Second Amendment. Robert Mercer wasn't just a supporter of gun rights. He was deeply invested in the issue, both ideologically and personally. In the tiny village of Lake Arthur, New Mexico, Mercer obtained a municipal gun permit, a move that baffled many. Why would one of the wealthiest men in America care about a permit in such a remote town? Critics speculated that it was a loophole, allowing Mercer and other wealthy gun enthusiasts to carry firearms with minimal oversight. For Mercer, the right to bear arms isn't just a constitutional issue. It was a symbol of individual liberty, one of the cornerstones of his libertarian ideology. His support extended beyond personal actions. Over the years, Mercer has quietly funded pro-gun organizations and conservative think tanks that advocate for looser gun regulations. This enigmatic connection to Lake Arthur highlights a recurring theme in Mercer's life: his secrecy. He rarely spoke to the press, avoided public appearances, and remained an enigma even to those close to him. Yet, behind the scenes, his influence was vast. By the mid-2000s, Mercer's wealth had grown beyond imagination, but he wasn't content to simply sit back and enjoy his fortune. He wanted to use his billions and his algorithms to reshape the world. His first major step in the political arena was the funding of Breitbart News, a conservative media outlet that would become the voice of a new political movement. But Mercer's ambitions didn't stop there. As we've seen, he funded Cambridge Analytica and its Canadian counterpart, Aggregate IQ, two companies that would later become famous for their role in data-driven political influence. Unraveling the formidable Mercer network is like solving a blindfolded Rubik's Cube. If you want more deep dives, subscribe to our channel. Think of it as your vote for more extraordinary stories. No super PAC required. Just hit that subscribe button and help us keep the lights on. While Cambridge Analytica was the flagship of Mercer's political endeavors, their influence didn't stop there. The Mercer family wasn't just funding tools, they were building an empire.
Bonjour.
At the center of this empire stood not just Robert Mercer, but also his daughter, Rebecca Mercer. Quietly, she reshaped the Republican landscape, cultivating alliances with figures like Steve Bannon, Donald Trump, and the Heritage Foundation. If Robert Mercer was the architect behind the algorithms, His daughter, Rebecca Mercer, was the strategist who transformed them into political power. While Robert preferred to stay out of the spotlight, Rebecca took an active role in shaping the family's political ambitions, building a sprawling network of influence that touched nearly every corner of conservative politics in America. This network wasn't just about winning elections. It was about influencing the foundations of political discourse, policymaking, and cultural narratives. From media to think tanks to political campaigns, Rebecca's impact became undeniable. One of the Mercers' first major moves was their $10 million investment in Breitbart News, a platform that would become a powerhouse for right-wing media. Rebecca played an active role in shaping Breitbart's editorial direction, ensuring that it championed their ideological priorities. From strict immigration policies to free market healthcare, Breitbart served as a rallying point for the alt-right, amplifying voices like Steve Bannon's, a longtime Mercer ally. But Breitbart wasn't their only foray into media. Their influence extended to prominent conservative figures like Tucker Carlson, whose Fox News show frequently echoed narratives championed by Mercer-funded think tanks. Behind the scenes, the Mercers provided financial backing to ensure their worldview reached millions of Americans. And then there was Milo Yiannopoulos, a controversial figure who gained prominence as an editor at Breitbart. Yiannopoulos, another Mercer-backed personality, became infamous for his inflammatory rhetoric. In 2020, he was also involved in Kanye West's short-lived presidential campaign, an unusual but telling sign of how far the Mercer network extended into American culture. While media and public figures were essential tools, the Mercers then extended to institutional power. That's where the Heritage Foundation came in. One of the most influential conservative think tanks in the U.S., Heritage has nurtured Republican policy for decades. And with the Mercers' backing, its impact has only grown. Rebecca Mercer sits on the board of Heritage, which over the years has become a key hub for the ideological debates and policy proposals that influence Republican administrations, including some backed by the Mercer family. One of Heritage's most ambitious projects, Project 2025, is a 900-page blueprint for transforming the U.S. government. The plan outlines strategies for dismantling regulatory agencies, reshaping the judiciary, and consolidating executive power, all with the aim of advancing conservative ideals. Project 2025 isn't just a political manifesto, it's a playbook. Since its release, it has served as a strategic guide for reshaping the American political landscape. Designed as a detailed roadmap, it lays out plans to restructure federal agencies, influence key appointments, and redefine government priorities. Prominent figures in the conservative movement, including some with ties to the Mercers, have contributed to its development and dissemination. Beyond policy think tanks, the Mercers also invested in shaping political narratives. One of their most notable projects was the Government Accountability Institute, GAI, co-founded with Steve Bannon. GAI specialized in producing investigations that targeted political opponents, strategically timed to influence elections. Its most famous product? The book and documentary Clinton Cash, which accused the Clinton Foundation of corruption. The publication played a major role in the 2016 election narrative, damaging Hillary Clinton's credibility. Rebecca Mercer wasn't just a financier. She was actively involved in ensuring the project received maximum media exposure. GAI was just one component of the Mercer-backed media ecosystem. The family also supported platforms like Parler, a social media network promoted as a free speech alternative to Twitter. While initially positioned as a conservative haven, Parler later came under scrutiny for its role in organizing the January 6 Capitol riots, raising concerns about the unintended consequences of unregulated online discourse. The Mercer family's reach extended well beyond electoral politics. Their financial backing influenced causes such as anti-abortion initiatives, climate change skepticism, and immigration restrictions. According to financial disclosures, they have donated over $100 million to various conservative organizations, including the Heritage Foundation and the Government Accountability Institute, shaping policy debates at the highest levels. Through it all, Robert Mercer remained a silent figure. Rebecca, however, became the public face of their influence, attending events, hosting fundraisers, and cultivating relationships with key conservative figures. Insiders describe her as determined, calculating, and unwavering in her political mission. But for all their power, the Mercers remain elusive. Their influence is undeniable, but their true long-term objectives remain shrouded in secrecy. As we've seen, the Mercer family didn't just build a network, they built an empire. From reshaping American politics to influencing cultural movements, their reach is undeniable. But their ambitions didn't stop at U.S. borders. To understand the full extent of their impact, we need to look across the Atlantic, to Brexit, one of the most divisive political events of the 21st century. Because, as it turns out, the fingerprints of the Mercer network are all over it. The Brexit referendum shocked Europe. A campaign so divisive, so emotionally charged, it tore families apart and redefined the UK's place in the world. But behind the slogans and fiery debates, there was something far more calculated at play. The Mercers' shadow loomed over it all. Their involvement wasn't obvious, not at first. But as the campaign gained momentum, it became clear that Mercer-backed organizations were funneling massive amounts of money into the pro-Leave cause. One of the pivotal players? Leave.eu, the campaign that relied on advanced data strategies, eerily similar to those used by Cambridge Analytica. AIQ's own website, now archived, proudly displayed a quote from Dominic Cummings, Vote Leave's campaign director. The strategy worked. By delivering divisive messages on immigration, sovereignty, and economic fears, Cambridge Analytica and AIQ successfully influenced millions of voters, securing a narrow victory for Brexit.
On the 23rd of June.
Aggregate IQ, the Canadian sister company of Cambridge Analytica, was deeply embedded in Vote Leave's operations. From personalized Facebook ads to targeted email campaigns, their work didn't just inform voters. It manipulated them. Using psychometric profiling, AIQ exploited people's deepest fears and desires, creating a wave of emotion-driven support for Brexit. For the Mercers, Brexit wasn't just an ideological victory. It was a strategic move. Splintering Europe aligned with their broader vision of deregulation, smaller government, and nation's resurgence. The ripple effects were undeniable, and their influence stretched far beyond the UK. While the Mercer footprint was evident in Brexit, their ambitions extended far beyond Europe. Their involvement in American politics didn't stop with Trump, as we've seen earlier. As the conservative movement evolved, they identified and backed new political figures, one of the most notable being jdvance. Initially a critic of Trump, Vance shifted into one of his most loyal allies. His 2022 Senate victory was no accident. From media narratives to funding super PACs, the fingerprints were unmistakable. This culminated in Vance's prominent role in Trump's 2025 inauguration, where he delivered a keynote address emphasizing American sovereignty and liberty, key themes of the Mercer-backed agenda. The Mercer network wasn't just backing individuals, it was reshaping the rules of global politics. From Brexit to the Capitol riots, their influence highlighted a new kind of power, one rooted in data, ideology, and precision-targeted messaging. But the question remains, why? Why would a recluse billionaire and his ambitious daughter dedicate their fortune to reshaping the political landscape? A power put to the service of their ideas, advocating for reduced government intervention and individual liberties. And with their immense wealth and audacity, the Mercers had the means to bring this vision to life. Yet, for all their power, the Mercers remain enigmatic. Rarely giving interviews, avoiding the spotlight, they've built an empire of influence while staying hidden from the public view. And maybe that's their greatest strength, the ability to pull strings of modern politics without ever stepping onto the stage. If you want to keep exploring these hidden stories with us, hit that subscribe button. Together, we'll keep shedding light on untold stories.